Hi, Mr. Reed. So you're an alumni from SHC, right?
Yes, the class of what class was I? Class of 1992.
Cool. So just
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about your time at SHC. What were you feeling? How was it going at that time? Were there any struggles? What were you interested in? Yeah.
Gotcha. No, my 4 years there was great. From freshman year all the way through senior year, I was involved with student council, student government, and then ended up being student body president during my my senior year. Excuse me. Um, but I took advantage of all the resources and activities that I could get involved with. Being a manager for the women's basketball team. I played 2 years of baseball, my freshman and junior year, but really focused on my academics and trying to figure out what my next steps would be because I originally wanted to go in politics. Was decided against that later on in life, but I had a really good time during my four years at Sacred Heart Cathedral Prep.
That's cool. That sounds like a lot of fun. What college did you go to?
I went to St. Mary's College over in Moraga and ended up getting my undergrad degree in politics and government, and then my master's is in health, physical education, recreation.
And how was your time there? Did you enjoy it? Do you feel like Sacred Heart Cathedral Preparatory prepared you for going to St. Mary's?
It definitely, I definitely felt that Sacred Heart Cathedral prepared me to enter into college, help get some study habits in place. Granted, I would say I wasn't the best student. I will just put that out there, but from learning new study skills to meeting new friends that I'm still friends with to today, I definitely enjoyed my time at St. Mary's College.
Mm-hmm. And what inspired you to go into politics or have an interest in politics and government?
I think it was just something that I was always interested in. I was lucky enough to intern for 2 years. I think it was during my sophomore and junior summers in Nancy Pelosi's office in San Francisco when she was just the representative, not the Speaker of the House. So learning about the government through that process. Granted, I was doing, answering some correspondence and working with their chief of staff at the time. But that kind of piqued my interest into going into having an interest in getting my undergraduate degree in government.
Mm-hmm. And right now, what are you doing?
Currently, I'm an assistant athletic director for sports administration and student services at Santa Clara University. I'm just finishing up my 25th year of working in college athletics. And in my role here at Santa Clara, I supervise 6 of our athletic teams: women's volleyball, indoor volleyball, men's and women's rowing, men's and women's water polo. I'm also an academic advisor. So I'm an academic advisor for men's soccer, men's and women's golf, men's and women's rowing, and indoor volleyball and beach volleyball. I'm the liaison with student life on campus, so I'm the one that gets the emails, text messages, or phone calls if any of our student athletes get into any type of trouble, which my phone hasn't rang much, so that's a good sign that our student athletes are doing well. And then just recently, last summer, I was asked to chair our athletics department committee on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And that obviously stemmed from the murder of George Floyd. And our athletic director, Renee Baumgartner, called me, asked me to come over to her house. We chatted for about 3 hours and came up with a plan of how do we create this committee and what we want to do with this committee.
Could you, I don't know if you could, but could you share us the plan or the steps that you were taking towards to do this?
Initially, we wanted to get a good balance of student athletes as well as faculty, some staff, and alums, so we're able to do that. And then we really, we initially started off just having some conversation with our BIPOC student athletes to figure out what the need was. What did we have to address? Because we knew it had to be addressed at some point. And then from there, we created a mission statement, our core values, and then we just started planning out different things. One of the first things we did last summer, we actually had a book club. We had roughly about 60 student athletes and about 40 faculty, coaches and staff that participated in this book club over a 5-week period. We actually separated the groups into coaches, staff, and then student athletes. And then the last meeting, we brought everyone together. And the book we ended up reading was White Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. Great conversation, great time to break the ice and start having those meaningful, deeper conversation about privilege and all the social and racial injustice that were taking place. So from there, we've had a guest speaker that came and talked about his experience. His name was Isaac Vaughn, class of 1984. I believe he was the last Black quarterback at Santa Clara University, and talked about his experience from that. We've started to put social justice patches on all of our uniforms that represent our department and what we want to achieve. During January, we had an anti-racism week where there was conversations with the students, coaches, staff, faculty. And then currently I'm leading a discussion over the month of February for the Netflix limited series called When They See Us. And I'm not sure if anyone knows about that, but it's about the Central Park 5 Black and Latino youth that were wrongly accused, wrongly imprisoned, and finally were exonerated for the crime.
Wow, that's really cool. Congrats. That's really cool.
Thank you.
What what effects did you see that happen to the students when you started this entire program? Like, did you see any effects that happened or any changes in students' behavior?
I think students, many of our student athletes started to pay attention to what they've been part of in the past. Many, granted, the vast majority of our student athletes, probably, 95% of them are all white or non-BIPOC folks. So a lot of them started to peel back the onion and recognize, yes, they do have some privilege. And yes, there are things that they need to learn in order to understand the strife that many of the Black and Latino and Black and brown student athletes at Santa Clara are going through. So as a result of that, the students created a group called SQUAD. It's called Santa Clara University Athletic Diversity. So it's made up of just students that have been meeting since September just to have a venting session, talk about some of the challenges they've had, talk about things that they want to do to help promote diversity in the department. There are allies that come to the meetings, so that's been great. The other thing that just recently started in January was the staff, our coaching staff, and staff members and administrators within the athletic department created a similar group for coaches, staff, and administrators to start those conversations. And the student athletes really encourage the coaches and staff to kind of create their own group. And we're looking at ways, how do we meet from time to time, bring both groups together to talk about certain things, as well as come up with plans of what we could do in the future to better the understanding and the diversity within our department.
That's really good. So what does Black History Month mean to you?
I mean, I liken it like Valentine's Day. It's celebrated once a year for this small amount of time, but it really should be celebrated throughout the year. And, for me, Black History Month is really just talking about and remembering the folks that have came before me and the struggles that they've gone through, and even the struggles that we're going through now as a Black community. And how do we continue to better the Black community, get understanding, help educate make sure the education that the Black community are receiving is just as good, if not better, than some that might be in a privileged school, might be compared to public schools. So it's a reflective time. It's a time to kind of, for me, to regenerate and figure out what can I do better as a Black man to help support younger Black men and women, whether it's at college or in high school or even as or even middle school kids, and what can we do to help them understand and know about their culture and what we could do to better that understanding.
That's great. And this is my last question. Going to school as an African-American male at Sacred Heart Cathedral Preparatory, what was your personal experience?
Overall, I had a really good experience, whether it was, connections. I think throughout my time at Sacred Heart Cathedral, I made it a point to try to get to know as many students that I knew, as well as, understanding the teachers. Now, granted, I had a little help because I have a family history of folks going to Sacred Heart High School and then Cathedral High School, and then going even further back to St. Vincent's High School before it became Cathedral. So there were teachers that taught my mother, that taught my uncles that I had a chance to be taught by for a small amount of time. There were teachers that taught my sister and my brother when my brother was at Sacred Heart. And I just use that to understand, get involved with many different things. To when, I was student body president, I, could go into, at the time, Brother Christopher Brady's office, who was the principal at the time, and say, hey, can we talk about this or can we talk about that? To understanding where, at the time, Mr. Scudder, who was Dean of Students, and sure, I won't say I was the most well-to-do individual. Did I get in trouble from time to time? Yes, I did. But, it often reminded me like, hey, I need to continue to try to do better. So overall, I would say my experience at Sacred Heart Cathedral Preparatory was great. And if I had to do it again, I would do it the same way.
That's great. Thank you so much for letting me interview you. You did a great job, Mr. Reed. I really liked it.